The Nightingale. So I'm going to start by telling you this was a movie I absolutely loved. There will be no jokes in this video, and I will get into a number of serious topics. I realize this video is long. I'm going to do what I can to make it worth your time. I started the video with a review. I'm not going to be spoiling anything that... Yes. And, you know, what... In the review itself, I will not be spoiling anything. Once I get into the thoughts section, I will put up the spoiler tag at the top, and the rest of the video will have spoilers for the movie, and I probably will also in that part be spoiling the Babadook, since, you know, these are the two feature films that Jennifer Kent has written and directed. So I think, and yeah, I feel it makes a lot of sense to compare them. Please don't let this video ruin these movies for you. If you haven't watched I wholeheartedly recommend both of these movies to anyone who believes that they have the fortitude to, you know, and anyone who feels that they don't. I really don't blame you at all. So, content warning and trigger warning. The movie features, and I will be discussing, rape, genocide, and racism. And infanticide. Now, the movie is rated R, and it's a very grueling movie. It features strong language. I might swear in this video like they do in the movie. I will not be repeating the racist language. That, to be clear, the movie isn't racist itself. It's demonstrating use of racist language. It's not promoting it or trying to make it seem acceptable behavior to use. I have watched this movie once, and I just got done watching it before I started recording this video. So yes, the plot. Set in 1825, Claire, a young Irish convict woman, chases a British officer through the rugged Tasmanian wilderness, bent on revenge for a terrible act of violence he committed against her family. She enlists the services of an Aboriginal tracker named Billy, who is also marked by trauma from his own violence-filled past. I'm really glad Jennifer Kent is making movies. I hope that as long as she feels she has something to offer, I hope she keeps making movies as long as at all. Yeah. This and the Babadook are both absolutely amazing. So yes, getting into the writing. So this was written and directed by Jennifer Kent, who is Australian. So she is tackling her own country's, you know, harsh history. And I think it often makes a lot of sense for it to be that, you know, obviously it's not completely the same, but you know, Germany, I'm not sure they're still doing it so much, but there was a while, I guess it started in the early 2000s, where they would make movies confronting Nazism and the horrors of the Berlin, you know, when they were under communist rule, you know, and yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for it to be the people who themselves, it's not them personally, but it is it is their people and nation that is responsible for horrors. So to yeah. Now, right, some stuff from Wikipedia. After the success of The Babadook, Jennifer Kent was deluged with film scripts from the United States, but decided to focus on writing and directing this movie. And it really is, like, she has a lot of integrity to do that. You know, it's not that The Babadook was like this big crowd pleaser either. That one is also, like, I read some reviews that said that you shouldn't be allowed to make movies like that at all. You know, that the traumas that it explores, you know, that so yeah, you know, critics loved it, and there were a number of, like, I think the movie did well, you know, but there are a lot of people who, you know, who really hate The Babadook. And so it's not that she ever, like, but you could easily understand if after the success of The Babadook, if you could, if she went and just made something that was, you know, that really, that audiences were also, you know, it's not as though no movies are being made about racism that are like that a general audience can get behind. You know, I have not yet. I'm not sure I'll ever watch, but I don't currently, certainly don't currently have access to. I haven't watched Green Book, but I do hear that that one kind of pats us white people on the head and says, "Don't worry, you know, you're one of the good ones. Those racist white people, that's the other ones. You don't have to worry. You're good enough. You know." And that's not this movie. You know, this movie is not about coddling us white people, and it's all the better for it. More from Wikipedia. Due to the brutality of the film scenes, psychologists were brought on set to support the actors, which makes a lot of sense. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, some people would say, well, if you need to go that far to even make the movie, maybe you shouldn't be making the movie, or maybe you should tone it down. I'm really glad that this was the choice made, instead of toning it down. And let's see, yeah, when it was released, it got widespread acclaim with praise for the performances, atmosphere, cinematography, screenplay, scope, and acknowledgement of racial violence in Australia. However, the film generated controversy for its extreme and graphic depictions of violence and rape. And yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Now, the you know, I think I will just move that to the, let's see, so here it is. And there we go. Okay, so yeah, the movie received media attention following its initial screenings at the Sydney Film Festival, where approximately 30 of the 600 filmgoers walked out of the cinema due to its extreme depictions of rape and murder. One viewer was heard shouting, "I'm not watching this, she's already been raped twice," as she exited the cinema. Kent defended the decision to show such violence, saying that the film contains historically accurate depictions of the violence and racism which was inflicted upon the Indigenous Australian people of that time. The film was produced in collaboration with Tasmanian Aboriginal elders who asserted that this is an honest and necessary depiction of their history and a story that needs to be told. Ken said she understands the negative reactions, but stated that she remains enormously proud of the film and stressed to audiences that this film is about a need for love, compassion, and kindness in dark times. And yeah, so a lot of my favorite movies are hard to watch. Mother, The Thing 1982, Monster, Boys Don't Cry. Am I gonna be? I'll go ahead and try. I believe it's pronounced Barvicha, Barvicha, and Unforgiven. And I don't know if it's not super easy to tell, but I did put a couple of those behind me. Not The Thing 1982 and not Mother, but yeah. I love movies that are hard to watch, but this was still very, very hard to watch. Now, on more than one occasion, men will use misogynistic slurs against Claire. I'm not going to repeat them, but some of them suggest that she's promiscuous, despite the fact that she is in a long-term monogamous relationship and otherwise a rape survivor. She is not having consensual sex casually. She's being raped and then blamed for being raped. You know, and this is part of many rapists. After raping the person, they will also try to shame the rape survivor. You know, imply or even outright state that it was their own fault. They brought it on themselves, which is of course absurd. It is impossible. Nobody deserves to be raped. Kent did an amazing job writing this. As monstrous as some of the men in it are, you can still see, like, there are these, like, when you read some of the really negative, some reviews make it out as though this movie, it's just like there's, you know, there's the good people and then there's this just amorphous blob of evil men. I would argue every single evil man in this stands out. They are all of them have some definition, something that, like, you understand what it is, where they're coming from. You don't sympathize with them, of course. They're much too evil for that, but you do understand why. And I really appreciate when, you know, this is very much a movie where we are, you know, we hate these guys. They are just the scum of the earth. But the movie doesn't let us off the hook by just saying, yeah, they're evil. It provides some hints as to why. It doesn't... I think an argument could be made that everyone in this movie does something bad. Not to... It doesn't say that all of them are equally bad, but you get where they're coming from. There are reasons, and it is, you know, it is a bad situation, and some people go further in the bad situation than others. And yeah, I absolutely see, you know, so yeah, the film is about a need for love, compassion, and kindness in dark times. It's very much that the people who are the worst in this movie, the people who... I don't believe that a person... I don't believe that a person can be evil. A person can choose to do evil if you do something unethical. I'm not talking about any kind of religious definition of that. I'm talking about causing harm. I don't care how you justify the harm you're causing. If you're causing harm, that's an evil action. And this movie is... yeah, the people who choose the most extreme evil could have chosen otherwise. They weren't... nobody put a gun to their head and forced them to do it. They chose to go that far. And the movie in part, like some of the more positively depicted characters, you know, over the course of the film, you know, if they have evil ideas in their heads, those ideas are challenged. And that's why they're good. It's not because they're perfect. It's not that they're saints, but they're willing to look a second time, to have their preconceptions challenged. Everyone in this movie hates at least one other group of people because of things they've been told about at least that group of people. And the ones that comes the closest to being good people are the ones that allow, you know, that gradually do start to see that they were wrong. Now, the direction, I have some, I'm going to briefly, well, maybe not briefly, but I'm going to go into some excellent IMDb trivia. Yeah. So, direct quote. "I've always had a fascination with Tasmania," said Jennifer Kent. "It was considered the most brutal of the Australian colonies, known as Hell on Earth through the Western world at the time. Repeat offenders were sent there. The rapists, murderers, hardened criminals, and severe punishments were devised for them to strike fear in the hearts of those back in Britain to deter them from crime. Women, on the other hand, who'd often committed minor crimes, were sent to Tasmania to even the gender balance. They were outnumbered 8 to 1. You can imagine what kind of environment that would set up for women. It was not a good place or time for them. And in terms of the Aboriginal invasion, what happened in Tasmania is often considered the worst attempted annihilation by the British of the Aboriginal people and everything they hold dear." And yeah, it really, the movie really hits you with that. She did an excellent job. For director Jennifer Kent, the character of Claire had to possess a fierce tenacity and a steely strength, character traits that came from close research into the era. In the convict prison in Richmond, Tasmania, a plaque on the wall explains that women inmates were put in solitary confinement for 3 weeks straight, no light, freezing cold, on a sandstone with a hessian sack, explained Kent. They were put in for talking back to their masters, or getting drunk, or other very minor crimes. They would be released after 21 days to go back to that same master, and they would deliberately commit another crime, so they would be put back into solitary confinement. That made me think, why would a woman do that? What was so bad about that situation that they would prefer total deprivation? The answer is rape, beatings, physical and psychological abuse. As she took form in my head, Claire emerged as a woman who has come from a very, very difficult background. To be poor in the Georgian area was not seen as an economic problem, but a moral weakness. So convicts were viewed with next to no compassion. Female convicts were seen as worse than male convicts because women were meant to be a symbol of purity. The Irish were seen by the English as the scum of the earth, one step up from Aboriginal people who were viewed as animals, so it made sense that she was also going to be Irish. And yeah, really, really, you can tell that she's driven by this. Let's see, and extensive research was done by Jennifer Kent on the history of convicts in Australia, the history of Tasmanian Aboriginal people. Filmmakers and cast also researched PTSD, violence against women, and how people deal with trauma. And right, a crucial production team member brought on early in the process was Aboriginal consultant Jim Everett, a Planjimirina man whose Aboriginal name is Purlia Mina Mata. "Our people lived through 2 ice ages," said Everett. "We were here when the ice melted and the land bridge that connected to the mainland became submerged. Evidence uncovered in one of the latest Tasmanian archaeological digs dates back 42,000 years." and then the English came. Writer-director Jennifer Kent was determined that the violence in the film would be an honest and authentic depiction. In order to respect those who suffered and died during this period in colonial Australia, she wouldn't shy away from the truth of what happened. Many Australians know what happened in certain parts of the country during that time, and other people don't. A lot of people outside Australia know nothing or very little about it. I couldn't go into this part of our history and water it down. Like many other countries that have been colonized, the indigenous people of Australia were subject to horrendous treatment by the colonizers. The systems of power were brutal, and I wanted the Nightingale to reflect this. I should also say, I myself and this movie are not saying that all English are or were awful. The colonizers were awful. Colonizers are by definition awful. And the film was developed and made in close consultation with... Oh, hold on. Yeah, all right. I'll get to that. And, yeah, actress... Ah, crap. Am I gonna mispronounce... I'm gonna... Okay, I don't know that much about Irish... proper pronunciation of Irish, but you know, I'm gonna see if it's possible that the Wikipedia page has the proper pronunciation. Aisling Franciosi. Okay. Aisling Franciosi, who played Claire, worked with a psychologist, Dr. Elaine Barrett, who took Franciosi to a domestic violence center to speak with the staff who work with women who have been abused, either over a period of time or an isolated incident that gave me a real insight into how these women keep going, what they feel, and the PTSD that they experience. One of the things I learned at the center was that globally, rape is a statistic that isn't going down. I was appalled and angered. Why is this still happening? Claire shows how resilient so many women are and how resilient women can be, and that was something that I felt was really important to bring to the screen truthfully and honestly. And that's something that's extremely important to every single time, every fucking time that some news story or piece of media, piece of fiction goes out and points out that rape is horrible and is still happening a lot. Without fail, without exception, you have misogynists come in and say, well, I didn't do it personally, so I shouldn't have to feel bad. Or, you know, why are you complaining about this? And these fucking sociopaths. If you haven't personally raped someone, good. That's a great first step. If you feel like maybe sometimes women look at you and instead of seeing what you yourself feel you are, what they see is the kind of monster that does rape. Someone like the lieutenant, played incredibly well by, I can't believe Sam Claflin, Lieutenant Hawkins, who is a complete bastard. If you ever feel like a woman has looked at you and not seen you, but seen a rapist bastard like him, maybe you need to consider if there's something you're saying or something in your body language or something that's reminding them. Possibly not of something they've experienced themselves, but something they know has happened. It's unreal to me, the victim complex, when people are told something bad was done here, and instead of internalizing, instead of going in and saying, I'm going to try to understand why it happened so I can help prevent it from happening, and I'm never going to do anything even remotely like that myself. Instead, they try to make it about them and about their hurt feelings. Some people are not clear what the word privilege refers to when we're talking about social justice. There are a number of aspects to it, but one that I think is very useful to memorize and convey to others is that one aspect of privilege is when you hear about something awful that's actually happened, not some fantasy like white replacement theory, which is not a thing that's fucking happening. If you hear about something horrible that actually has happened, and instead of trying to tend to the survivors of the tragedy, you focus on if it's going to affect you personally negatively. Some misogynists, the one thing they'll say when they hear about rape is they'll express concern that maybe this means they'll have a harder time finding a willing partner now. That's where their head goes. That's the thing. To a lot of misogynists, in their mind, the greater tragedy is straight men not getting to have sex with women, not women being raped by men. Back to IMDb trivia. Even though the film is set 200 years ago, writer-director Jennifer Kent's determination was that she would not follow the standard conventions of a well-behaved period film. All the concerns about violence towards women, towards indigenous people, towards nature, the repercussions of colonizations, they're very much in our mentality and in the way we live now. But by placing something in the past, you can give people a distance from it so they can see it without feeling like they're being attacked. Everything that's real and deep about this film is relevant now, completely. Actress Aisling Franciosi said of her role as Claire, "I knew within the first 5 pages that it was something different, and I thought, this one's mine. I have to get this one." It's very rare as a young female actor to come across parts like Jennifer had written in Claire. I often find that strong women are written unrealistically, but I knew immediately Claire was very human. She has her flaws, she's not always likable, but she's incredibly resilient and powerful, a fully formed human being as a lead female character, and it's very true. And some people have straight up said that they couldn't empathize with Claire because of the racism she expresses towards Billy. We're talking face to face. You know, it's not just that, you know, if she sees an Aboriginal individual off in the distance, she thinks, no, she will say to the face of a man who's literally, you know, some of what he's doing is keeping her alive, and, you know, at first she is still racist towards him because that's what she's been taught. And some people apparently did feel, because they felt so strongly, you know, they empathized so much with Claire, that they didn't, the racism didn't seem to, yeah, they straight up said the racism, you know, it didn't hit them as hard, her racism towards Billy. I'm not going to, you know, the important thing is that the movie reached them. So I'm not going to judge them for that, but I do think that it is supposed to, you know, when she says or does something racist towards Billy, that is supposed to be like a punch in the gut. That was how I experienced it, and I don't think there's something wrong with that. I think we have got to get past this idea that if someone isn't perfect, then they deserve no empathy. Empathy should be given based on what someone has endured or fears. If someone isn't perfect, they should still get empathy. I saw a lot of people refuse empathy towards Amber Heard, and I'm not going to claim that, you know, this is the thing. Every single fucking time we talk about the trial, we have to make sure to underline, no, I'm not saying Amber Heard was innocent either. We can't just directly go into saying the obvious truth. This was a mutually abusive relationship. She and Johnny Depp were both abusive towards one another. But a lot of people refused to look at what he had done to her, insisted that she must be lying about all of it. Yes, I acknowledge, evidently she lied about some of it, but she did not lie about all of it. A lot of people refuse to empathize with her. Jim Everett, Aboriginal consultant to the production, said, besides the massacres and taking away land that happened, similar to anywhere else in Australia where Aboriginal people were invaded and colonized, kids were taken away from families and put in Tasmanian orphanages. When they were old enough, they'd be used as cheap labor on farms. It wasn't uncommon for Aboriginal people to be working in all sorts of jobs, and a lot of Aboriginal people in Tasmania today are here because they survived by mingling in with whitefellas right across the state. The film's official director's statement by Kent reads, I wanted to tell a story about violence, in particular the fallout of violence from a feminine perspective. To do this, I've reached back into my own country's history. The colonization of Australia was a time of inherent violence towards Aboriginal people, towards women, towards the land itself, which was wrenched from its inhabitants. Colonization by nature is a brutal act, and the arrogance that drives it lives on in the modern world. For this reason, I consider this a current story despite it being set in the past. I don't have all the answers to the question of violence, but I feel they lie in our humanity, in the empathy we hold for ourselves and others. And actor Bekali Ganambar was the winner of the Marcello Mastroianni Award for Young Performer at the 2018 Venice Film Festival for his role as Billy in the film, and he absolutely deserves it. He does an absolutely amazing job. I'll talk more about him later in the video. Yeah, Kent said, you know, I was fortunate to be offered a lot of projects after Sundance, some of them very good films, after the Babadook success, but The Nightingale was the story I really wanted to tell. And I really appreciate this. This is, you know, it's... There are a lot of people who appreciate this movie. It has gotten a lot of positive, both like high ratings and also positive reviews. But it is definitely also a movie that, like, honestly, I think there's a substantial chunk of people who, like, legitimately should not watch this movie because it will be triggering for them. And I use that unironically. Again, I hate that I even have to say that. I really, really hope one day we can stop treating PTSD as a punchline, because that's what triggering, you know, originally referred to PTSD. And then young people passionate about social justice tried to spread it to you know, but it refers to triggering of trauma. It's not some, but conservatives without empathy, I'm not saying all conservatives have no empathy. I'm referring to the ones who show that they have no empathy. A lot of them didn't want to have to deal with other people's trauma, so they successfully turned it into a joke for a lot of people. This movie is legitimately triggering for many people. I myself have never been raped. But I don't think anyone who actually has been should... I wouldn't recommend watching this movie to them. I think it would make a lot of sense. Maybe, you know, they could maybe recommend it to people who don't yet have empathy for rape victims, rape survivors, but I don't think, yeah, I don't think anybody should be forced to watch pretty much anything. Um, I suppose, yes, honestly, if, you know, if you're someone, if, you know, people who still say that colonization wasn't that big of a deal, I would pretty much say they should watch this or something like it, but I don't want to make it sound like watching this is like some kind of punishment or something, but they could, I think this has a chance to get through even the thickest of heads when it comes to, but it's difficult. A lot of people just, you know, because they're gonna take, they're gonna hear that Claire is Irish, they're gonna hear that, you know, they're gonna recognize, oh, these are Aboriginal people, and immediately they're gonna discount their humanity. Actress Aisling Franciosi preparation for playing the part of Claire included physical training as well as extensive psychological research. I asked Jennifer if there was anything she could send me because I wanted to be well informed about the whole world, not just the character, for my callback. Once I'd been cast, I watched documentaries, films, and read books about the era, but also about violence against women and sexual abuse, anything that could give me a connection to what Claire would be going through. And it worked, because she's completely convincing. Like, watching the movie, obviously I know this is fiction, you know, that the actress herself, while sadly countless women have been raped and are being raped, this actress wasn't actually raped for making this movie. You know, I'm not gonna speak to, I don't know if she's ever experienced it otherwise, but she made it completely convincing. And at the 2018 Toronto International Film Festival, a man was booed by the audience when he asked Jennifer Kent during a Q&A if she believes someone in the theater would have the intent to rape after the screening. Kent and the cast were disgusted and did not answer before moving on to another question. Now, sometimes I try to be very charitable. A exceptionally charitable reading of that would be that maybe this man, maybe he thinks that he's challenging, maybe he thinks that they have some sort of prejudice that it doesn't make sense for them to have. Maybe he thinks that they think that, you know, if any group of men would rape, completely ignoring the context, which is extremely clear in this movie. Like, this movie is set in Australia in 1825. The men who are the worst in this are frequently military men. That's just, they were there, they were colonizing. It's wild to me that some people can't seem to grasp context. There are positive men in this. Few of them are in the military, I'll grant that, and that's, you know, the militaries train the humanity out of the people that are part of the military. They train them to be docile, to follow orders, to kill and hate. And yeah, sometimes a byproduct of that is that they'll rape some of the people that they're being asked to kill. And sadly, a lot of militaries have not real, you know, they don't seem to want to acknowledge that maybe this means that the training should be changed to at the very least include a do not fucking rape element to the training. But instead they'll say, well, you can't put male soldiers and female soldiers in the same place because male soldiers rape. Don't you understand that? Of course they're going to rape people that are even on the same side, because once you make a man a soldier, he's a rapist. I don't know what you want us to do about that. We don't think that's a problem, evidently. The uncharitable reading. Right, to finish, yes. So I think possibly this man was maybe trying to challenge this idea that, you know, there, regardless of circumstance, regardless of context, maybe a man, you know, yeah, there's maybe some of the viewers right now would, you know, be right. He's a charitable reading is that he's trying to make them, you know, think, oh wait, right, maybe not all, when the movie is explicitly, like, it's super clear that it's not all men, you know, hashtag not all men. The sadly, I think more likely the thing that he was saying was, if you depict rape, that's going to encourage rape. And I think that might also be what, yeah, Kent and the cast perceived it as. And see, that's the thing. Every so often, when you make a case about rape being awful, every so often someone will say, well, if you weren't talking about rape, rape wouldn't exist, which is just unfathomably ignorant. Now, yes, so Aisling Franciosi was on an initial list drawn up by Kent, producer Christina Satan, and casting director Nikki Barrett. On paper, she had technical skills that would be beneficial, a trained opera singer who speaks Irish Gaelic. And yeah, you know, she sings, hence, you know, she's referred to as Nightingale. You know, she's yeah, she sings on more than one occasion in this, and yeah, it really, she can do so much with her singing. It's, yeah. Director Jennifer Kent immediately recognized actress Aisling Franciosi's unique talent and a raw emotional quality that the character of Claire would need. It's really hard to say what draws you to someone and what makes you want to fight for them in a role. As soon as I met Aisling, I thought, here is a person who will give this character what she needs. Enormous heart, humor, warmth, and strength that I think surprised even Aisling. This character goes to the depths, and I felt that Aisling was willing to go there. She's an extraordinary human being. People say, oh, it's good you took a chance on a new actor, but when you see it there in front of you, you're not taking a chance. You're lucky to have that person. She's an extraordinary talent. I think she will go on to do more incredible things. I agree. I definitely want to see her in more things. At the heart of the film is the central character of the Irish female convict Claire, Aisling Franciosi. Convicts generally came from terribly poor backgrounds and stole for survival. A thief of a loaf of bread or a coat could see a person being transported for 7 years as an indentured slave to a free settler or soldier, their poverty ensuring permanent exile. Female convicts were often treated badly by their masters. And Cast members were struck by the profound talent of actress Aisling Franciosi, just as director Jennifer Kent. And the producers had been Aisling jumped in headfirst. She's inspiring to watch, observed actor Sam Claflin. Working opposite her, seeing the passion inhabiting her, made me strive to give everything I could. She's an incredible force, and she had to take on the role of Claire. I've only seen Sam Claflin in the Hunger Games movies, and I think, was he the prince in... Yes, he was the prince in Snow White and the Huntsman. So to me, he's this incredibly charming... Oh, he was in the Pillars of the Earth, but I do not remember his character. I'm afraid I remember a few details of the Pillars of the Earth. I remember loving it. Yeah, it was really, really wild. Like, if I wasn't 100% certain, no, it's the same guy, I would think, I don't know, identical twin, cloning maybe. I would not have guessed that yeah. But yeah, he's incredible, and another incredibly talented, another actor I hope to see in more things. That, yeah. Now, let's see, the The film is set during a period known as the Black War, when the land in Tasmania was not safe to travel nor easy to navigate, with huge tracts of rugged wilderness, where writer-director Kent pairs Claire with the character of Billy, a young Aboriginal man who acts as her tracker or guide. And... yeah, Franciosi said, "It's no secret, it's rare to have a female director directing a film like this one. I found that really inspiring. Jen was uncompromising in the things that shouldn't be compromised, so I knew that she was going to bring the best out of everyone. She's incredibly supportive, and she's there until the scene works, until you're able to give everything you've got." I think a very strong case could be made that from now on, if a movie is going to feature a woman being raped, for one thing, the movie should explore the fallout of it. The way that, this movie, Monster, there are others, but in some of these, you shouldn't really know going in that it's going to be about rape. But yeah, that's one for one thing. For another, should be directed by a woman, and preferably also written by one and be well researched. I think it's the fact that some people, in a lot of reviews of this, you see people trying to determine if they think that this is just like a typical rape revenge film, or if it subverts. I would argue it subverts. This is not one of those... Again, a charitable reading is to say that those movies, at least some of them, were made at least partially because the people making them, the producer, writer, director, realized that rape was a monstrous thing. They wanted to provide catharsis for the viewer, and they wanted to make a movie where the people who rape, A, are monsters, and B, get their comeuppance. I'm not going to give away before I get in this review itself, before I get into the spoiler section, I'm not going to tell you if the rapists get comeuppance. But the fact that it's even a discussion, it's sad that there are so many of these movies where, like, if you just if you have a lot of empathy for a group of people and their trauma, you shouldn't jump into something like doing a reenactment of the trauma, and then, like, following it up with violence. I understand that some people feel that there is a catharsis there. I acknowledge that. When I think about rape, it makes me, on some level, I want violence done to rapists. I'm not above that, but the fiction and media and culture are great ways to sort of examine, explore, and overcome real-life tragedy. But simply reenacting trauma and then following it up with retributive justice is not the same thing. As that doesn't necessarily help. People who have survived are not necessarily going to be happy about that movie. It's definitely, the existence of it is potentially triggering for them, but and to be clear, some people do, but if you're going to make a movie about rape, I really think it should be like this, like Monster. Now, let's see. I think that is the... Yes. So moving on. Let's see. Yes, some critic quotes. The let's see. Yeah. One critic says, by centering the story on the white protagonist, I feel the filmmakers are falling into the same trap as the English in Australia. It is really white pain that matters the most, and this is sadly true. And of the film, obviously in real life, white pain at least shouldn't matter more. Like, I suppose culturally, an argument could be made that it does, but yeah, this film, you could very easily have Claire, be an Aboriginal individual rather than Irish. Even if you wanted there to be a male Aboriginal as well, the treatment of Aboriginal was worse than the treatment of Irish. I'm not saying, to be clear, the treatment of Irish by the English for a very long time was absolutely monstrous, and actually only, like, historically, if we're talking about, like, overall, it's, it's fairly recent that Irish, and some Irish are still abused, for being Irish. But Australia was the land of the Aboriginal people. And yes, I have a really great quote here from another critic. The movie glosses over the ethnic cleansing of the Aboriginal natives of Tasmania on behalf of the British military. Upon the start of colonization in 1803, approximately 7,000 to 8,000 Aborigines inhabited the island. Over the course of 27 years, almost all were killed by the army and colonists, leaving only 2 families. And yeah, this movie really should have been about them more than, and I don't know, other than this notion that for a lot of people white pain matters more than that of indigenous peoples. I don't know what else is, you know, certainly I don't believe that they couldn't have found an actor who could have pulled it off. And this is nothing on to Aisling Franciosi, incredibly talented actress. But if they could find, you know, once again, the tracker Billy is played by Bekali Genambar, who does have some let's see. Hold on, I'll have it momentarily. Yes, he is. Okay, how do you pronounce this? Yonol. Okay, that's yeah, I'm not sure if that's, I probably mispronounced that. I'm sorry. But yes, he is. Yeah, that is his background. He is Yolnu, and the you know, he is one of the most important parts of this movie. And this movie does feature, there's okay, if I'm gonna see if I can get the proper pronunciation of that. Okay, she's known as Magnolia May Muru, and she's also Aboriginal, yeah, Aboriginal and Australian actress and model. And she doesn't have a huge role in this. And I don't know if she personally could have played if she could have carried the entire movie, which, you know, for sure, like, if Franciosi was bad, the movie just doesn't work. Even if everything else worked. And it does. You would still, like, so I don't know if Magnolia herself could have, but clearly it is possible to find incredibly talented actors from Aboriginal backgrounds. So yeah, I really wish that the movie had been, yeah. Now, let's see, yeah, this is also a really great critic quote. When I first heard about this film, I was intrigued, yet I dreaded watching it. For some time now, I have avoided any films with scenes of rape. I've seen sexual assault on screen many times now, and my tolerance for such things runs low. Yet The Nightingale felt like a movie worth seeing. Many have reduced the film by calling it a rape revenge film, yet I don't feel this label fits. In standard rape revenge films, the hero's world becomes smaller. All else fades around them as they become hyper-focused on getting revenge. Nothing else matters, and no one else matters. However, during the journey of the Nightingale, Claire's world expands. She becomes more aware of the suffering of others around her. Her search for inner peace begins to feel like just one part of a place and time filled with suffering. Through her odyssey, she gains peace through her bonding with others. And that's very, very true, and it's part of the strength of the movie. Ultimately, it appears the filmmakers felt that the racism against indigenous people would be so ingrained that, you know, let's see, that maybe, you know, maybe the movie would work better if the lead was a white person who realizes how bad indigenous people have been treated by other whites. And I think for some people, you know, until they see a white face, they're not, in the movie, they don't know, they can't really engage with it. So I don't know if maybe Kent and the producers realized this consciously, and because of that they chose to make this change. Maybe it was an unconscious bias on their part. I don't know, but I do think the movie would be even better if the lead character was an Aboriginal woman. And yeah, so the following is paraphrasing, but I saw some user reviews say basically, so many of the white people in this are depicted as evil, which could make non-whites hate them. It's true, many of the evil characters, I'm not justifying the claim, what is true is, many of the evil characters in this are white. I personally think it's more important to note that they are supportive of colonization, and since they're English soldiers in 1825, of course they are. That's why they're evil, and historically the people who benefited from colonization tended to be white. A lot of people focus purely on the rape, but don't mention rape is not the only. There is also murder. A charitable reading is that they think that the rape is worse, but I can't help but wonder if it's not also that a lot of people don't care that much about a woman's relationship to her loved ones, you know, if including the yes, I mentioned that the movie features infanticide, and yeah, you know, if more people realized how important a woman's relationship is to her child, we wouldn't see so many conservatives saying that women should be forced to carry their child to term, even in cases of incest, rape, life of the mother, the pregnant person being underage. It's very clear to me that Kent feels intentionally about the fears of motherhood, including losing a child. I know a number of other movies where a parent gets revenge for something done to their offspring. Usually, the ones I know, maybe there are others like this, but a lot of the time the parent is male. And yeah, so I've talked some about the you know, these military men who do the evil have been exposed to military propaganda, which makes people more willing to commit atrocities. Some military propaganda, you know, I know of some, I've seen some with my own eyes, you know, thanks to the internet, on the you know, stuff that helped get people pumped for the two world wars. Some of which includes enemies, you know, people from the other side impaling babies. So yeah, you know, and I'll be completely honest, like if there was someone in front of me that I thought was willing to impale a baby, yeah, I would completely despise them. And if, yeah, I can't rule out that I would be, yeah, I would absolutely despise them. So, and Claire herself expresses the belief that Billy is a cannibal. Overall, I would say that the 2003 movie Monster does an equally good job showing a woman who grows to hate a certain group of men after being traumatized by one. Let's see, actually, no, never mind. Moving on. And let's see, yeah, you know, very reviews say not for everyone. It goes places some people will be put off watching the movie for, and you know, the same is said of The Babadook. I agree for both films, and this is clearly what Kent wants to do with her directorial efforts. And yeah, so some reviews say movies shouldn't show something so monstrous. Now, if you're a survivor or fear becoming one, I don't blame you for feeling that, for skipping watching this. But if you're a man who doesn't think or care enough about rape to help fight rape culture and misogyny, to fight for civil rights for women, then clearly you do need to see this or something like it. And we still have people in public claiming that colonization was at least a necessary evil, that the people in colonized countries are better off than they would be if not for the colonization, which I guess better off for the percentage of people who survived colonization. This movie helps counter that narrative. The arc of The Nightingale essentially follows a pat revenge narrative, but the innovative Jennifer Kent once again shoots something masculine and familiar through a different lens. Unlike many movies where a female character is raped, the camera and editing do not eroticize the rape. It's focused on the emotional aspects of it. Usually the sexualized rape scenes are handled by men who see women as sexual objects, not people with emotions. Too many men have an easier time imagining themselves doing things that, while they wouldn't call it rape, qualify as rape, than being raped. Just as she did in The Babadook, Kent maintains tension for so long at a stretch that you do not notice you have forgotten to breathe until it finally eases up. It strives to be an epic and pulls it off, even if there are one or two false summits before the final scenes. It's painful to watch because the truth is often painful, especially when so many myths of empire have accreted around it. It's clear that Kent seeks to turn her gaze not just on the subjects of the past, but the audience of the present, turning our own desires at their most coarsely visceral and crassly sentimental back on ourselves. It isn't a movie you enjoy, you hope to survive the experience. The punishment is the point. This is a difficult movie because the questions it raises are not easy. The Nightingale has its flaws, but Jennifer Kent's outrage at the brutal injustice doled out to women and minorities burns through every frame. It may not always be easy to sit through, but we're nonetheless lucky to witness it. The movie is longer than necessary, especially for a film that keeps looking for any kind of identity through its method. There's no groove or flow sustained by Kent. I think that is probably, I think that is something that she, it's not her strongest suit as a writer and director. But you know, in some ways this is better than The Babadook. So I think, you know, I hope she keeps making these, and you know, yeah, each time we'll see some improvement. You know, Patty Jenkins directed Monster, and then, you know, 14 years later directed Wonder Woman. That was also a case where, you know, the second effort showed some signs of improvement, and just, yeah, you know, a lot of people struggle with the very early work, and these are still extremely impressive for these 4 movies. Now, let's see. Yeah, this person says the violence, sexual or otherwise, is never gratuitous, exploitative, or immature. Kent is no Quentin Tarantino. Violence in her work has stomach-churning consequences. When she chooses to show such violence, there's always a point. It's never arbitrary violence for violence' sake, or worse, violence for titillation's sake. And yeah, some people question, would Claire really be racist against Billy? And I would absolutely say, you know, again, I'm not saying, like, not every Irish person today is racist against Aboriginal Australians, but back then, yeah, you know, they were told, oh, these are, you know, these are cannibals, they're awful people, we have to, you know, we have to subjugate them or kill them in order to, you know, otherwise this place will never be, you know, will never be good. She would have been taught that racism. I would argue that everyone despises some other group of, if not people, then animals. So it's really important that we are careful who or what living things we despise. I find that it's what we should turn our anger on are ideas and actions. I don't think, you know, obviously if the group you despise is rapists, then that, yeah, you know, I'm 100% with you there. But if you say, you know, this entire group of people, you know, I don't blame any woman for mistrusting men, particularly straight men, because a lot of straight men basically treat sex as some kind of, like, they can get very predatory, and that's something that we really need to deal with in culture. The you know, yeah, rape culture, toxic masculinity. We need to, yeah, I think yeah, so the let's see, yeah, this one person says it's absurd that there are so many people wandering through and meeting each other in the wilderness. I yeah, it feels like, in parts of this movie, the wilderness does feel like just, you could get lost there if you don't know exactly where you're going. But other times it does seem like, and you know, before you, if you haven't watched the movie, you might be saying, but she's got a guide. There are times where she doesn't follow him, or they get separated or something, you know. And it is a movie that has a number of white people who are not following any Aboriginal guides. Yeah, they still find themselves, you know, yeah, out in the seemingly the middle of nowhere, and somehow they find some other, it's just, yeah. Now, I found this kind of fascinating. This one person, this is a one-line summary of a IMDb user review. Woke cartoon revenge flick for the new revisionist history. Revisionist? Like, literally everything that this film depicts has actually happened. Like, this is documented. We're not talking about, like, oh, this, you know, like, I guess it would be revisionist if it was set on, like, Earth's moon, and you said, no, there's people living naturally there, and they're raped, and it's not supposed to be an allegory. That actually happened. That would not be, but yeah, you know, a lot of conservatives, the only people to unironically use the term woke as criticism, don't acknowledge reality anymore. Again, note, I said a lot of. I didn't say all. And let's see. And one review said, the time I spent watching Claire in The Nightingale is the closest I'll ever get to spending time with my great-great-great-grandmother, both Irish convicts shipped to Van Diemen's Land. The setting here of 1825 is a mere 15 years prior to my GGG Irish granny's arrival in the same place. This added a personal element to my viewing and was responsible for me getting emotional during numerous scenes. And let's see. What this film does so well is exploring the dynamic of preconceptions and power relations in a very restrained setting, except for maybe the main antagonist. No one in this film is pure evil. And I would argue there's a line that I think helps explain the main antagonist, but it happens fairly late in the film, so I'm not going to be, I don't think I will be saying it in the review itself. You get where every person is coming from, what specific social relations they're shaped by, and just try to make the best out of it all. Even the female protagonist is no moralistic do-gooder as one could expect given the plot synopsis, since she also sets explicit boundaries against the Aborigines while simultaneously belonging to a marginalized social group herself. And that's also very important. I will admit, like, you know, I guess, yeah, when, you know, maybe it's a while back, maybe 10 years ago, but a while back, you know, I didn't realize myself, but yeah, the marginalized social groups can sometimes be very very bigoted against other marginalized social groups. You know, it's a sort of, what's the word, like, hurt people, and trauma begets more trauma. You know, if you are in a really bad situation, you might, and it's not like an intellectual thing, it's just, it's a lizard brain thing of, like, we're gonna try to find some group that's below us so that we're at least not at the very, very bottom. And yes, the film is very violent and a tough watch at times, but the violence always progresses naturally, adds to the general feel of authenticity, is never once exploitative and ostentatious. Moreover, every outburst of violence has an impact on the individuals involved, whether it deepens an escalating cycle of abuse or acts as a cathartic incident, maybe even questioning the concept of revenge as a whole. And another, this one also just, okay, so yeah, this person wrote, "This one's for the feminist crowd. Plenty of poorly behaved soldiers raping women with screaming babies in the background." It's accurate. It happened at the time. It is still happening in parts of the world. I assume this person must just not want the world to change for the better. What makes the Nightingale... Hold on. I gotta see. I copied in a lot of stuff. I'm gonna real quickly see if... Yeah, there's still a bunch left. Holy crap. Okay, I'm going to... Yeah, I'm gonna skip some of this. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so one person says most impoverished convicts sent to Australia for petty crimes were English. It wasn't a penal colony for the Irish specifically. The movie never claims that. The English poor had it just as tough from the ruling elite in those days. Considering English used to treat the Irish as lesser, I find that very hard to believe. And he says, but they're being erased from history. It is extremely important for the British Empire to be criticized in media, and there are still a lot of movies that empathize explicitly with poor English people. I don't think this movie really had a lot of room for the yeah, it's true. It does not feature a lot of poor English people in, like, and in a sympathetic light, but I really don't think there's, you know. And he says Irish landowners were complicit in oppressing their own people. Sadly, this is true. I'm not sure there was room for that to... See, I'm not 100% certain if some of the people who abuse her aren't also Irish, because there are people that you would figure, I mean, that's, you know, that person should be the peer, and they're still treating her, yeah. Yeah, and yeah, so at least, you know, some people say, I am not personally responsible for the actions of people who came before me, even if they are my ancestors, and I resent a movie trying to make me feel responsible. The movie isn't trying to make you feel responsible. It's saying that these were actions aided by the patriarchy and white supremacy, and that today, you know, a lot of us who, you know, I don't feel personally responsible for my ancestors. You know, I'm Danish. You know, if you go far back enough in time, my ancestors were Vikings. You know, were, yeah, very, very brutal people. I don't feel that I'm personally responsible for it, but I do try to appreciate that some people were badly hurt by things that, you know, yeah, that other people, perhaps me included, have benefited from. Now, let's see, and yeah, you know, people today do benefit from patriarchy and white supremacy, and it's telling and shameful that some of the people making this terrible argument are clearly more bothered by the fact that the evil characters are white, when what they are shown to do, they express no, you know, yeah, no empathy for the female characters or viewers over the rape. And let's see, I think I'm only, yeah, I'm very briefly going to, apparently at the 2018 Venice Film Festival, an Italian critic shouted a sexist comment when Kent's name appeared in the credits. The comment was similar to the slurs used against the film's protagonist. The Nightingale was the only film directed by a woman to be included in the festival's main competition. Now, one critic says, the journalist has since piped up to say that his actions were deplorable, do not reflect his media outlet, but his retraction on social media definitely still suggests a real blindness as to why his behavior was quite so inappropriate. Somehow the screening managed to serve to be a real reminder of exactly why Kent's mission is so important. And let's see, so I'm not going to quote the entire thing, but what he shouted included, "Shame on you, you're disgusting." And this is a person who, he is a film critic. If he writes, you know, I haven't, and don't intend to read what he wrote about this film. If he thought it was bad, he could have just written in his review that he thought it was bad, which again I haven't read. I don't intend to read what he, I'm really not interested in him shouting that. Is not just trying to communicate how he felt about it. It's trying to hit. It's and he didn't. Again, it strikes me as someone who felt personally attacked, or felt that he shouldn't be asked to empathize, or to, like, I'm gonna move on. Now the, let's see. Yeah, so the opening of this movie does a really solid job of just immediately getting us into the, you know, we get why this is a really harsh situation. The very first thing we see is Claire be woken up by her husband Aiden. We see that her baby, you know, was sleeping right next to her. Not in like, um, I'm almost certain in 1825, like rich people would almost definitely have had like a separate bed for a baby. I'm almost certain back then they knew that that was, you know. Add to that, I'm almost 100% certain she was sleeping on like basically the floor. It wasn't a particularly pleasant bed, you know, while she's working for these military men who have, you know, they don't have amazing accommodations either, but much, you know, yeah, it's completely the way that she's being treated is abhorrent. And she walks through some nature. I believe it's between where she sleeps and where she works. And she's carrying the baby, and in one of her hands she's got this little knife, because she might need it. She might need to fight something off or kill something on the way to work as she carries her baby alone. You know, that right there tells you how dangerous a situation this is. I'm not going to give away whether the ending is happy or sad. The ending does fit what came before. I've seen some you know, some reviews express being very unhappy with how it ends. I didn't love the ending as much as that of the Babadook, but I do think it is very good. And that brings us to the characters. So Sam Claflin as Hawkins, basically, you know, he works in a very, it's a place that he really doesn't want to work, and he apparently he was supposed to work in that particular place for 1 year and then move on. He's been there for 3, and he really wants to move on, and his superior straight up says, "You're not owed a promotion." And when that sentiment is aired, Hawkins appears as if he didn't actually, he never really considered that. It's like the guy might as well have said, you know, you walk faster if you walk upside down or something. Like it sounds like nonsense to Hawkins. He's like, but I'm a white man in the military. Of course I'm owed a promotion. You're not making any sense here. And there's a young, you know, basically he's like the let's see, do they pronounce it Yago, maybe? Harry Greenwood. He's basically like, okay, so it doesn't say his age here, but if I had to guess, like, I don't know what would be the young, the age of, yeah, I don't know, maybe 17 or something. He's like, he's young, he's new to this, and he wants to make a good impression, and so he gets pushed further than, you know, he ends up doing things that he feels bad about because he's trying to make a good impression, and the military do not respect weakness. Charlie Shotwell plays Eddie, and the let's see, he's from 2007, so I guess he would have been like 9 or 8 when they filmed this. And yeah, he's an Irish kid. He's you know, he wants to make a good impression on Hawkins, and yeah, he's I'm not going to give away exactly what happens, but it is very, very upsetting. And yeah, he gives a really, really great acting performance. Okay, he apparently also played young Michael Morbius in the movie Morbius, so um yeah, I think he was good in that, and certainly it was more the, like, there's a lot of people who didn't come out of that looking particularly impressive. I hope he's been in a bunch of stuff. I see. He's yeah, 22 total credits, and he's been acting since 2014, so that's pretty good. Yeah, I look forward to seeing him in more stuff. I hope the next thing I see him in, he isn't ruined by, you know, really talentless work like Morbius was. But no, I do remember that there was some good, yeah. And yeah, I already mentioned Magnolia Maimoru. She plays Lowana, and she also does a really great job. And Charlie Jinpa Brown plays Charlie, or Uncle Charlie, an Aboriginal guide who also gets some really strong moments. And a lot of the acting in this, it is like they don't spell out how they're feeling, and they maybe don't even show that much in the face. You see in their face. They have to push it down. They have to hide it because of how much it hurts, because they know that if they show it, and that is also explicitly, like, some of the characters who are unable to contain their agony are killed by military men for being too loud, you know. And again, that is something that happens. That is something colonizers do. The movie has actual spoken Aboriginal dialogue, and apparently it actually is the hold on, I have the, it's in here. Yeah, the language spoken by the Tasmanian Aboriginal people in this film is Palawa Kani. It is near extinct and marks the first time ever spoken in a mainstream picture. And there is also some Irish Gaelic spoken. I've read some. Apparently, for some it wasn't subtitled. I don't know what version of the film. I mean, I streamed this through my library, and almost everything was subtitled into English. So I don't, or Danish, I guess. But yeah, it was translated. I understood almost everything said in this. There was a little bit of Aboriginal that wasn't. Maybe also a little bit of the Irish Gaelic, but almost all of it was. But I 100% understand, like, if some of it didn't get subtitled, like, there's some really important things that are not understood by English-speaking characters, and yeah, you'd miss out. Like, yeah, I guess if you're dealing with a situation where you're not sure if it's going to be subtitled, try to make sure it is subtitled, because it's extremely important to understand what is. Yeah. That brings us to the movies. Cinematography, which was handled by D.P. Latchuk, who also DP'd The Babadook, so he has worked on... He's DP'd both of the movies. He is originally Polish, and yeah, he has 53 completed cinematography credits, 2 upcoming, and he directed a couple of shorts. But yeah, let's see, that was right, and yeah, got some critic quotes. I was fiddling about with the film's aspect ratio until I realized that it was meant to be what it was, and thinking about it, this gave the film more impact. Many films have used the Academy ratio to good effect in recent years, and this is another. Kent uses the tighter square aspect ratio, often resting on Franchosi's face in close-up. The effect feels all the more oppressive, as if the sides of the screen itself are threatening to close in on her and swallow her up. Very true. And the choice of, yeah, 4:3 aspect ratio, a layer of confinement to this terrifying historical story of colonialism and evil. Let's see. And yeah, some of the early scenes are lit predominantly by candlelight, a theater of claustrophobia and isolation. Its characters exist entirely in sparse, crumbling rooms. And let's see. Yeah, it definitely, it feels inescapable, and that is what, you know, no matter how you, at the end of the day, the circumstances of the film are inescapable for the people who find themselves in it. You know, and obviously it hurts the ones we empathize with more than the ones we don't empathize a lot with, but yeah, it is, you know, they are trapped in this place that they don't want, like Billy and the other Aboriginals, they do want to be there, they just don't, you know, they don't want to be genocided, but everybody else feels like somebody else put them there. And yeah, one critic said, shit rolls downhill, and the lower down you are. So, you know, Hawkins, as cruel as he is, and there's no excuse for that, there's no, that is awful, and we hate him. You know, the reason that he is as awful as he is, you know, he's in the military, he's in this shitty post in a country that he doesn't, you know, he wanted to rise through the ranks. He wasn't looking to get stuck in a post that, yeah. And because he has been stuck there for 3 years when he had expected 1, he, you know, he has kept Claire there for 3 months after her 3 years were up. And because she is treated so badly, she sometimes treats Billy badly. Now, this was edited by Simon New, and he also edited The Babadook, so again, you know, yeah, she brought back several of the people, and he has a total of 24 completed credits and 2 upcoming. Some of them are shorts, but let's see. Yeah, he does a really solid job. There is one, there's at least one part of the film that I do think you could probably have trimmed, and you wouldn't have lost very much, other than just it's you know, it features atrocities, but they're similar to what we've already seen, so it feels like the movie is starting to repeat itself. and that's not really, you know, the part of the mission with this movie is to show many of the different awful things done by colonizers to indigenous people and Irish in Australia, but yeah, it starts to feel like it's just repeating itself, and that is, and it's also just, it's unnecessary. It's, yes, it's because we're seeing an Aboriginal woman be raped, and this is after we've already seen Claire be raped. So if the movie had just centered on an Aboriginal woman, you didn't have to have a separate scene of, you know, because ultimately it doesn't, yeah, it just, it does feel like, yeah, another argument in favor of the movie just focusing on Aboriginal. You know, even if you did, even if you wanted this thing of, you know, it should be, you should pair up two people who don't think highly of each other, and, you know, you want to have an Aboriginal man in there to help with the, with like tracking and such. Like, you could have made it that they're from completely different tribes, and I mean, I don't know for sure, but I can imagine that there was probably some animosity between tribes, or maybe there's some, you know, let's see, yeah, maybe Billy has done something that is considered taboo by the tribe, and so even though they're the same tribe, she resents him as well. You know, you could definitely have something like that. Now, the movie, let's see. Huh. Okay, I'm not really finding anything about budget, but the box office was $909,847. And it was actually filmed in the outlands of Tasmania, Australia, and Derwent Valley, Tasmania, Australia. And it really gets a lot out of that. There's a very strong sense of place. And let's see, Jennifer Kent's directing, and the director of photography, Lachuk, takes it into the Tasmanian wilderness locations, adding a large dimension to the film. And you do get a really a strong sense of, it is dangerous to be in these places, you know. And the score is very effective, and I also really appreciate, this is a movie that understands that sometimes no score at all is actually the most effective thing. The music was handled by Jed Kersel, who also composed for The Babadook. Oh, also composed for Slow West. Yeah, very, very talented. He's really, really good at these kinds of, like, indie kind of, like, you don't, it's not what you're used to seeing from, like, a big budget and like small cast, you know, isolated, and just, yeah. I also recommend Slow West. And yeah, he does also do some stuff that's like big budget, like Assassin's Creed, The Pope's Exorcist. Total of 32 finished ones. And yeah, very, very talented, very effective music. And so the pacing, it's not that I thought that this movie should be like fast-paced. I do think that there are a couple of times where it feels like it's not quite, um, we don't completely, it's maybe kind of moving very slowly, or maybe even slightly standing still, and it isn't quite justified, and it's not, you know, I didn't sit down expecting, like, Last House on the Left, or like some kind of, you know, I Spit on Your Grave, something like that. But it did definitely, there are a couple of times where, but she has gotten better. You know, there's you know, there's also a little bit of pacing, you know, issue with the Babadook, a movie I actually I rewatched that one, like, what, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, or something like that. And yeah, there is a little bit of pacing awkwardness in that one, but in this one it's better. And I think, you know, I really, I hope she makes a lot of these movies, as long as she feels she has something to really offer. I want her to keep going, because, you know, really, really talented. And she, you know, the few, you know, weak spots she has, she is getting better at. But yeah, this movie is 2 hours and 12 minutes before the end credits starts, and if you count the end credits, 16. And it is, you know, you might want to sit still for those 4 minutes to kind of let it land, but there isn't anything otherwise that you really have to sit through. And I definitely do think you could have trimmed this down by at least 10 minutes, and I do think that it would have been, because it doesn't, like, I appreciate that some of the time it is, like, focusing on, like, it's a, what's the word? It's focusing on different aspects of the trauma of rape and of losing her family. You know, it's not only all-consuming rage. Some of the time, you know, she'll have dreams about them, which is extremely common for this kind of situation, you know, and those work. I think it works when it's just, you know, exploring the entire, because there's, you know, again, some people think, oh, you know, rape or murder, you're completely focused on, you want revenge then, or, you know, the movie should focus on it's like there's a wrong that has to be righted, and, you know, like I quoted another reviewer saying, nothing else matters. It's completely focused on that, and that's not what this movie wants to be. And yeah, I appreciate that it explores the different aspects of the grieving process, something I find extremely important to put in movies. But there are times where it feels like the movie just kind of stops, and then something is inserted awkwardly into the movie in order to, you know, it's the kind of thing where if it were a documentary, it would feel more natural. But it's a fictional story with a very clear protagonist. You know, I'll grant that Billy works as a co-lead, but they are the characters that it's, you know, built around. And every so often, you know, it's not a huge part of the movie, but there are a couple of times where something will be inserted because Kent wanted to comment on it. She wanted to explore it, but it doesn't come naturally from the what's it called, the narrative itself, you know. And I wish that they could have been included a little more, yeah, more organically. And if they just couldn't find a way to fit it in organically, I think they should have killed their darlings and removed them. But yeah, that is it for the pacing, and that actually brings us into, so the best elements of this is how unflinching and accurate it is. it, I think it has a chance to open eyes for some people who, you know, don't have a lot of empathy for the victims of colonization. It's so incredibly just, yeah, like you know, we really want to see Claire, you know, in a better situation. We're really determined to, yeah. The worst aspect, without a doubt, I think they should have, Claire should have been an Aboriginal. And yeah, I don't think it ruins the movie, but I hope that next time that that Kent, you know, is able to completely shed. You know, I'm not saying that every single movie. I'm not saying it's that you can't put white people in protagonist roles anymore. But at the end of the day, this is, you know, she is essentially telling a white person's story that takes place in amongst the tragedy for Aboriginals, you know. And I'm not, you don't have to make the movie, you don't have to have no white people in pain. You could have had just every so often they encounter a white person in pain and realize, oh, you know, some of the English people are hurting other white people here in Australia, you know. But as it is, yeah. Now, yeah, some other people, you know, some people have said the movie is too brutal. I 100% understand why, and I'm not really the person to, once again, I myself have not been raped. I'm not sure. I don't think any yeah, there are ways that this movie, it doesn't, you know, I obviously I empathize with rape survivors, but I've never been there myself, so I don't, you know, it's not up to me to say how you show things like that. You know, that's for people who are survivors to say. But I lean on the fact that experts cleared it for Kent. Now, the thing I was most worried about was the occasional awkward editing, and possibly also bad CG, like in the Babadook. And yeah, there was a little bit of that, but less editing. I don't think there was any CG. Oh, right, I didn't talk about the effects-wise. This is very strong, and there's also some really great stunt work. The effects, I think all of them are practical, and it really is, like, there are times where someone is hit, like in the head with the butt of a rifle, and it feels like it just hit you. Like, it looks so convincing, and just, yeah, completely, yeah. Let's see, and yeah, I was looking to more, the thing I was most looking forward to was seeing more of Jennifer Kent's work, and yeah, I'm really, I really hope she gets to make a lot of these, because, like, there are so many directors, like, they'll make the first movie, and it's really popular, and they're like, okay, I guess that's what I'll do then, and they make movie after movie that's super similar, you know. I don't think I really buy it, but some people say, you know, Alfred Hitchcock made the same movie over and over. I disagree. You know, I don't make any excuses for him as a person. He clearly did some really awful stuff, but he made a lot of movies that there were definitely some similarities between. This and the Babadook, like, I mean, they're set in Australia. The lead is a woman who has strong feelings towards her offspring, goes through tragedy. and there are, you know, white men in power who don't help her. That's about it. Other than that, like the Babadook, you know, there are some aspects of that that feel like it's like a new generation of like Freddy Krueger or something, you know, but it doesn't feel like it's just, you know, oh, and yet another, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street film. You know, most of those are really, really good, but a lot of them are very similar to each other. But yeah, I mean, that, you know, The Babadook is a psychological horror movie. This movie, yeah, IMDb listed as an adventure drama thriller, and that fits a lot. Like, I suppose you could say that both of them have drama in them, but like incredibly different movies, you know. And yeah, I'm really, really impressed with the I think the most prominent thing that's true of both of them is that they are about women who have been traumatized, and it's not about, you know, it's not about a man coming in and fixing everything for her, as so many movies like these are. You know, and yeah, you know, they're about actual problems, things that happen in the real world, and like, and yeah, you know, obviously some of what happens in the Babadook is, you know, that is a fantasy horror movie. So I'm not saying that the stuff that happens in that movie, or I suppose it's, you know, it's up for debate whether it's fantasy or it's hallucination, but I'm not saying that the things that appear to happen in that one literally happen in the real world, but the things that happened to cause the trauma that led to the hallucinations did, you know, that does actually happen. And yeah, you know, yeah, the trailer is very careful to not give too much away. It does ultimately maybe a tiny little bit too much given away. I wouldn't necessarily say that it gives you a really good idea of what the movie is like. It does, you know, there's things in it that help convey that it's not just straightforward rape revenge, you know. But it's very difficult to make a trailer that conveys what this movie is like. The cover and poster don't give too much away, and it doesn't really tell you what the movie is like. It's more of a sort of, you know, you get a sense of maybe the mood. You know, the poster is her, right, there's this is not a poster. I don't know why it's listed as one. There's two posters. One that has Claire running with a gun, and one with half her face covered, half her face visible, and you see her eye, and it looks like she either is about to cry or has cried, and the other half of her face is covered by a nightingale. So that tells you that it's about pain, and it's, you know, the nightingale is spreading its wings, so it's, you know, it's about her self-actualizing, but doesn't really tell you more than that. Now, on Rotten Tomatoes, this has an 86% with more than 243 reviews, which makes it certified fresh. Of the 243 reviews, 209 of them are fresh. 7.50 out of 10 is the average rating. Wow, there's less than 50 verified ratings for users, and the average rating is 3.9 out of 5. The overall is 73%. The consensus: The Nightingale isn't for all taste, but writer-director Jennifer Kent taps into a rich vein of palpable rage to tell a war story that leaves a bruising impact. And on Metacritic, it has a 77 out of 100 based on 36 critic reviews, 35 of them positive, and let's see, yeah, one of the middling ones says the film drifts through and doesn't quite fulfill, and it's broad strokes. Yeah, and it has 6.8 out of 10 from users, 67 ratings, 47 positive, 7 mixed, 13 negative, and let's see. So there's actually not. Yeah, there's at least one of the negative reviews is the one that I quote about. You know, it says that, oh, you know, the white people are awful. So I don't. Well, I need to say more. Yeah, and this person says it was shot to no advantage in small screen format. When he also does say that it's claustrophobic. So yeah, kind of sounds like he's just looking for reasons to not like it. For him to, within just a few words, completely contradict himself. Now, let's see, yeah, the other English negative review says that the movie is too harsh, and I certainly do respect that. You know, for sure, if you think this movie goes too far, you know, as long as you're not saying that because you don't have empathy for the people affected, then I 100%, you know, I don't think it goes too far. I think it makes sure to always do it in a tasteful way, a harsh way, but a tasteful way. It's not just there so that we'll really badly want revenge. It's there to underline how bad it is. Yeah, there are a lot of horror movies that feature rape that don't do enough to really get into how much it hurts people. Now, let's see. So on IMDb, it has a 7.3 out of... Oh, hold on. No, yes. 7.3 out of 10 based on 33,000 user votes. 28.5% gave it 8. 27.7% gave it 7. 12.6 gave it 9. 11.9 gave it 6. 8.4 gave it 10. Not sure I understand giving it less than 6. I guess unless, like, for if you think, you know, yeah, if you object to showing such gruesome material. Let's see. 4.7 gave it 5. 2.1 gave it 4. 2.0 gave it 1. Wow. 1.2 gave it 3. 0.9 gave it 2. So yeah, there is still a substantial chunk of people who really hated at least aspects of it. And oh, right, that was not... hold on. Right, I'll do it like this. There are a total of 411 IMDb user reviews, 343 if you hide spoilers. I read the 100 top voted of them, and of those, 4 people gave it 1 out of 10, another 4 2, 3 gave it 3 out of 10, 5 gave it 4 out of 10, 2 gave it 5 out of 10, 5 gave it 6, 7 gave it 7, and yeah, 22 people voted 8 out of 10, 21 9 out of 10, 29 gave it a perfect 10 out of 10. Of the 100 most highly regarded user reviews. So yeah, this has been very largely positively received. Yeah. And let's see. Yes, I will be putting some links in the description box, including my vlog on the Babadook, since that is the only other feature fictional directorial effort of Jennifer Kent, and also some videos and text, yeah, that go into the, yeah, that I think are worth looking at. And yeah, I rate this an 8 out of 10. This is the part where I try to say if it's a movie that I am gonna watch again soon, and if I look forward to it, and that kind of thing. And I'm going to be echoing what a lot of other people have said, and say I am not sure I'm ever gonna watch this again. It's just, it really hurts to watch, and that's not, you know, like, again, like I quoted another critic saying, the punishment is the point. It is meant to hurt, and I don't think that she went too far. Again, really, my only major issue is I think Claire should have been, if Claire, if instead of the movie being about Claire, if it was about Loana, that's basically, you know. Other than that, I think, yeah. But even though I rewatched the Babadook, I don't know for sure if I'm gonna rewatch this one. Now, let's see, right, and I wanted to compare. Yes, overall, I think this is better than the Babadook. Although I would say that one has a focus that you know, it doesn't ever stray from its focus, where this movie, you know, like the thing we're most focused on is Claire, the trauma of Claire, and her trying to get to the military men who ruined her life. And occasionally there'll be these stray things on the way that I think detract from the film, though I appreciate that, you know, it's never just like, it's not out of a lack of faith in the film as it is, and it's not to like reassure us white men that no, this is not about, you know, yes, the movie features white men that are good, but it's not like going out of its way to make sure that, you know, like, I didn't feel like I was being personally attacked by the movie, and that's because I don't rape people. I do what I can to fight rape culture, to fight misogyny. You know, the movie didn't make me feel like I was some special, you know, it made me even more passionate about fighting against rape. But it didn't feel the need to reassure, you know. And yeah, that is it for the review. So once again, from here on out, I will be spoiling everything in this movie, and I really don't, if you think that you can handle the subject, the handle watching the movie, please watch the movie. Please do not let me spoil it all for you. But with that said, so I'm trusting you to click away now. this is when we get into spoilers. So I'm going to start with the section notes taken while watching on paper. So we see from very early on that Claire does have a, you know, rebellious spirit. You know, she sings as she's asked to, and then, you know, the lieutenant makes her pour, you know, pour wine for his men. And one of them, I'm not going to reenact it, but one of them, like, sticks his tongue out at her. And she, you know, she looks at him and she fills the cup with wine, and then she knocks the wine over, which, you know, I approve. And it's like, that's not, like, gonna get her in a lot of trouble with Hawkins. It wasn't his wine, after all. Or it might be his wine, but it wasn't his cup. But, you know, she knows not to, like, strike him in the face or something, which, you know, and yeah, so I really, it's such a small detail, but it's there, and that is something, you know, I have interacted with Irish people, and something you will find, you know, all the abuse that they suffered at the hands of the English. There's a rebellious spirit. Like, they don't put up with just anything, especially not from English people. So that's, yeah, and it's the kind of thing, like, you could easily see someone, you know, argue, I mean, can we cut it because the movie's already a little long? But no, it's a really important little, you know, before the rape, she doesn't go further than that. She even tries to talk Aiden out of making their case. And let's see. And, you know, she makes her case to Hawkins, and it's such, like, so well done. The, you know, the moment, you know, he asked her to come to his quarters, and she stands at one end of the room with him at the other, and you can clearly tell she knows where this is going. If she doesn't manage to convince him otherwise, he is going to rape her. He has raped her before. You know, he says she's kept it from Aiden, but, you know, yeah, he rapes her when he wants to, because she can't stop him, and he doesn't think she's human. And I appreciate the detail. He gives her gifts. He calls her Nightingale. He says, isn't she a good singer? Like, he thinks he has positive feelings for her. He doesn't think that what he's doing is misogynistic. Like, just because you give her gifts, and, like, you know, clearly she doesn't want to be singing to the men. You know, he's treating her like property. She might as well, in his mind, this might as well be like, you know, showing that his dog has learned a new trick or something. He's showing off, you know, and he's not at all taking her feelings into account. And, you know, you know, and he says, I'll be offended if you refuse to take my gift. You know, and the you know, yeah, she says, you know, you were supposed to get my freedom 3 months ago. And then he says, you're ungrateful for, you know, and you know, she even points out it's the law, and then he says, but you're a thief. So the law doesn't, you know, in his mind, she doesn't deserve to be treated with justice because she has, you know, she did her time, you know, like, but that's not enough for him. And let's see, yeah, and, you know, after he rapes her, we see that you know, what was her name? Harriet, I think, who was, you know, babysitting baby Bridget. You know, she's upset at Claire. You know, she's basically internalized misogyny. She says, oh, you must have had a great time at the party, and it's, you know, we know that she didn't, but yeah, you know, this, I'm not 100% certain if Harriet is, British or if she's English or Irish, but certainly you would you know, if like it seems like you could understand if she did have empathy for Claire, but no, the let's see, and yeah, we see that, you know, and Aiden is upset for Claire, and Hawkins has given Claire a lot of gifts over the 3 years, and all of them go into this little box. They're hidden, and, you know, perhaps it's in case of, like, theft or something, but I'm pretty sure it's also she doesn't want them. She, you know, she keeps them, you know, she later says, you know, she'll sell them, but she's not... Unless he makes her, she probably never wears them. She doesn't want them, she doesn't, you know, but yeah, and it's also, you know, if he does at some point come to her, come to the house and demand it, she can say, no, look, I kept all of them, I have them right here. And Aiden, you know, he said, he asked politely and she didn't, and, you know, for Claire to get her freedom and didn't give it. Now he, you know, he got upset, and now he's gotten drunk, and now he's demanding her freedom. And, you know, he, crap, I think he maybe like slap his, oh wait, crap, I remember there's some kind of violence there, and that, you know, Hawkins demands an apology, and Aiden gives him one, and it's not enough. You know, so basically Hawkins just wanted to prove that he had the power to force him to apologize. And then he brags about how he has raped Claire, and he lies and claims that she likes it, and likes having, you know, likes being raped by him better than, although he doesn't characterize as that. You know, he says, you know, sex with me is better than sex with you for her. And then the was his name Ruse, maybe, I think, also rapes Claire at Hawkins. You know, he doesn't mind, and Jago is, you know, he tries to get baby Bridget to stop crying without hurting, but it escalates to infanticide. And I really appreciate the sound design in the scene, because the baby crying legitimately, like, I think, is there maybe 2 minutes of just the crying of a baby constantly being heard. You know, like, it's incredibly uncomfortable, and it also serves as, like, increase of tension, because every additional second that that baby is crying, like, we realize this is going to go badly. You know, these are not people who take, you know, that kind of thing well. And we see that the military authority won't help her. You know, she's got her dead infant, and he keeps saying, oh, so your husband killed your baby. And then, you know, she says something like, no, and I damn well just told you it wasn't my husband. And then he has the absolute gall to say, watch your mouth, or don't swear, or something like that. Like, fuck this guy. Fuck, what an asshole. Just no empathy for a grieving mother. And just, and yeah, you know, he says the words, why would I trust the word of an Irish convict over that of a military officer, of an English military officer. And yeah, you know, that's right there, that's the problem. There are some people who think they're above the law. Other people agree that they're above the law, and because of that, they act like they're above the law. And the other Irish, he'll make sure that she goes with Billy, but other than that, he's not willing to help because he is worried what would happen. He's worried what would happen to him and his wife. He has empathy for her, but it is that thing, and it is like, yeah, going for revenge against an oppressive force like that is extremely dangerous. So you can understand where they're coming from. And let's see. And yeah, Billy points out that white people kill indigenous people by not being smart with the land. Let's see. And I think this is Hawkins who says, "Don't say that again, smile." And that's how a number of powerful people deal with trauma. They don't want to hear about it. So they just force others to pretend like things are better. And they demand she show her papers, really showing how, they really were second-class citizens. And Billy points out that if he's not with her, he'll be shot on sight. And Billy saves Claire when she insists on crossing the river, and she very nearly dies, and yeah, like that kind of, if you haven't been in nature, that kind of thing is gonna be really, really cold. Like we are talking, she might cramp up. So it's, and it is, just deep enough that it's not in, if she keeps going, it's not enough. She can't, she can't both have her head above water and be standing on ground under the river. So, yeah. And, yeah, she says she was caught stealing. At the fire, Billy has a really great monologue. I really appreciate, like, yeah, really, really care about his character. And let's see, we see that yeah, Hawkins rapes Loanna, sorry. And yeah, the people that let's see, after killing Loanna, after Hawkins kills Loanna, some of the Aboriginal people follow Hawkins and the others, and do manage to, let's see, they wound Jago, and he isn't able to, yeah. And yeah, Claire catches up to Iago and, hits him and stabs him in the torso, and he cries out for his mother. And I really appreciate, like, there's no, it's not cool, it's not, like, there's no, there might be some catharsis, but there isn't a real satisfaction in doing, she doesn't, like, before she manages to kill him, she reduces him to, like, he's lying there crying out mother or mom or something like that. There's she's not, what she's doing isn't like, she's not like removing this purely evil, being. She's reducing him to this really vulnerable state. And yeah, she doesn't end up really taking any pleasure in. Actually, I suppose maybe that's why she ends up not killing the others. Billy kills the both Ruse and Hawkins, but by the end Claire is trying to prevent the killing of it. So yeah, but and that is like, when you look at like what people who are not sociopaths say about killing, especially the very first time they kill, they'll talk about, maybe before they felt like, oh, that person deserves to die, or I was just so angry in that moment or something. But as soon as it becomes real to them, as soon as they realize that what they've done, there's that line, hell of a thing killing a man. You take away everything he's got, everything he ever will be. And yeah, for sure, the sociopaths don't care about it, but people who aren't sociopaths, they tend to be very disgusted by it when they do it. And I also appreciate this is a movie that acknowledges how difficult it is to get. We live in like so many PG-13 movies today. It's like, you just gotta hit someone once with the right weapon or a bullet or something, and they're dead, and they stay down, and it looks cool, and it's like, and it's really, really messed up. Like, in fiction, scenes of killing should be really, like, off-putting. And I appreciate that, after the stabbing, Billy is basically appalled by Claire, and, at first he doesn't respond to Boy. He does, she keeps calling him Boy, and finally she relents and says, Billy, and he turns and pays attention, and, yeah, he realizes that it's about revenge, and explains his relationship to Charlie, and, Claire's having these nightmares of Aiden, of Bridget, and also Yago, and this is very realistic. If someone close to you dies, part of processing it can be having nightmares about them. And, the fact that in the nightmare she's actually chased by Yago, that really, and the, in some of the nightmares she's like dancing with, Yago, with Hawkins, with Aiden, and, sometimes they look, healthy and alive, sometimes they look dead, and this kind of, but yeah, the fact, she ends up actually running off, yeah, at least in the dream, running away from Yago, running after her, chasing her, and that is something that happens when, a lot of people, when they feel guilty over killing someone, they will have nightmares where the person is, back to life and chasing them and that kind of thing. I've seen some reviewers say that they didn't think it made sense that she didn't keep attacking as harshly as she, what's the word? After she, yeah, near the end, she's aiming her gun at Hawkins, and then she doesn't shoot. And some people said that doesn't make any sense. I think it is the fact that, you know, she kept trying to push away the fact that, you know, but yeah, once you've killed one person, like, yeah, there's a lot of people who, you know, they kill one person and they never ever kill again, because they just can't, you know, and some people carry the trauma of killing a person with them the rest of their lives. So I really appreciate, because so many of these movies, it ends with, you know, it may not be the person who was raped, but it might, you know, it might be someone getting revenge on their behalf, kind of thing. And the movie will end with the revenge, and it will basically say that was a good thing, you know, that the and you know, like I said, I understand the catharsis, the catharsis that is, you know, there is a tension there. You feel like it will make things better if this person dies, and maybe even if the person who was wronged by them gets to kill them, but that's not psychologically credible. That's not what happens when, yeah. Now, let's see. And I appreciate that, you know, the paste that Billy makes for her, it does ease off it eases all of the physical pain of the lactation, but it also reminds her of the emotional pain. And some people have said that, you know, he's basically the noble indigenous person, and I wish that the movie did a better job getting away from those tropes than it ultimately does. And I like that Charlie leads them into and intends to leave them in no man's land. You know, there's let's see, I think, is it maybe in the oh, that's right. And yeah, before Claire shoots Iago, he tries to surrender, and she's furious, of course. Let's see. No, it apparently isn't. But there's, you know, when the basically yeah, you know, the Charlie is intending to leave them there, and he says, "Look, you can be king of all this wilderness," or something like that, you know, mocking him. And yeah, you know, if Hawkins hadn't killed Loana, then I'm not sure. I think Charlie would have kept working with them, you know. And ultimately, it seems to me like he, you know, yeah, certainly the fact that Ruse kills him is not what what Hawkins wants. And I like this detail that now he, you know, right, and yeah, right, before killing Charlie, you know, you know, Hawkins says, "I can give you what was a 10 shilling. You'll never have to work again," because he thinks that he can regain power in this situation, because, okay, Charlie has abilities that he needs, that Hawkins needs, but Hawkins has stuff. He has stuff that he could give. He has resources, and if he can just, you know, if he trades enough resources, maybe he can get you know, he doesn't stop, and I don't, does he even apologize? I don't think he apologizes for shooting Luana. You know, it wouldn't have been enough, but it wouldn't have done it. You know, it certainly would have had a better chance than offering money. But you know, and you know, the try insulting Charlie doesn't work. And yeah, the sergeant shoots him, and now the sergeant is at the very bottom, and Eddie is the new sergeant, because that is the entire worldview of Hawkins. There's someone at the top, there's someone at the bottom, and if you're gonna take, yes, that guy was at the bottom, but we needed him, and you shot him, so now you're at the bottom. It's such a great depiction of this kind of, and generally, like, Ruse, you know, he says, you've had sex with Aboriginals, I just want to, and I've done everything I could for you, you know. Yeah, he thinks that it is very much this transactional power of the military that is explored, and you know, also just Ruse, the way he reacts. You know, he looks really like he is legitimately upset that he is now at the bottom. He never imagined that could possibly happen, but you know, if you know, if you can look at someone who speaks the same language as you, and you know, understands food and shelter, and you know, all these things, and you don't see them as a human being, I mean, yeah, you know, then why if Charlie is not a human being, if he doesn't deserve to be treated as a human being, why does Ruse? You know, what about him? You know, and the answer is where he was born and the skin color that he had. You know, that's it. That's the only thing, and he thinks he's above these other people. Right. I also noted that Hawkins, like, you know, he rapes Luana. He doesn't even seem to have any, you know, he's not enjoying it. And he also, he hits her to stop her from, you know, according to the subtitles, she's basically praying for good spirits to come and help her. And yeah, you know, it doesn't make him not rape her. It makes him hit her. And yeah, Claire said, you know, just want to go home now. You know, she's the fact that she tried killing, or yeah, the fact that she succeeded in killing, you know, and you can understand, like, it's we're talking about you know, this man killed her baby. You know, yeah, you can completely understand why she wants to kill him. And she says that, you know, Betty the horse was Aiden's horse. It's the only thing she has of his, you know, so it's all she has to remember him by. And then, you know, later the horse is stolen by Hawkins, who then claims that it was always his horse. And Eddie, the kid, has already embraced toxic masculinity, saying that only girls cry. And yeah, and Claire by herself dancing, and the music starts to get, and laughing, and the music starts to get atonal, really disturbing. Be a man. And he's, you know, for him to be a man, he would have to, in cold blood, murder another person. And, you know, Billy, who's been helping them, because they don't need him anymore. So Hawkins, yeah. And Eddie cries, asks for another chance, and Hawkins shoots him because he doesn't like the sound of the crying. You know, it just completely, a complete monster. And yeah, so Claire encounters a couple of people. She gets directions. She rides in the back because this, more well-to-do woman does, empathize with her. And yeah, Billy and Claire meet back up. And let's see. Yeah, Billy learns that all of his people are dead, and all of the Aboriginals in the scene are shot for yelling. And one of them wants a trophy and starts cutting off the head. And one of the others does say, "Oh, that's sick," but he's like laughing. He's not going to stop it. He just, yeah. And that again, a lot of racists have chosen to cut parts off the, non-white people they've killed as trophies. And yeah, the old white couple do let them, they take them into yeah, they and Claire gets to sit at the table, but at first Billy is only on the floor, and instead of just giving the spoon to him, she throws it on the floor next to where the bowl is. And the man does ask, offer that, it's okay for Billy to sit at the table, and he cries over the losses. And everyone stares at Claire and Billy when they're in the town, and they split up. I'm not even sure that Billy is allowed to go into the store, so that's, I figured that's probably why. It's one of those things of, yeah. And we see the lieutenant, appeal to an officer, and like, I realize that this officer does not, he hasn't seen all the things that we've seen in the movie, but still, he looks at Hawkins and thinks this is, this is what, yeah, this is how it should be. And I think the movie does, it's really, really well done, because the movie, that's it exactly. It's like that thing of, yeah, yeah, it's not a spoiler to say that the movie, and I believe also book, All Quiet on the Western Front, is named so because, despite all the tragedy that we witness in it, the officers that looked at it just wrote All Quiet on the Western Front, because to them this is nothing. To them this is normal. This is just how things are now. This is the new present day. This is just how it is. And yeah, I'm sure this officer doesn't know everything Hawkins has done, but to him, he sees, oh wow, you got all the way, and it's, he lies. He says that he got there without a guide, which is, blatantly false. And claims, oh, I've learned, I know this place by now because I've been here for 3 years, kind of thing. But yeah, if you just look at his results, you might think this is what we need in the military. He is the awful things he's done are basically invisible to other officers. Let's keep in mind, the officer at the start of the movie who turns down the promotion, he doesn't actually say, "I can't believe you're treating the Aboriginals and the Irish so bad." The thing he's upset about is that, yeah, he says that oh, you're engaging in immorality, I would pretty much bet he's not saying you can't be raping that Irish woman. He's saying you shouldn't be having sex with an Irish woman. Keep in mind, if he thought this guy is raping this Irish woman, why doesn't he offer to he could, if he demanded Hawkins tell, let's see, it was, no, is he captain? No, never mind. The officer could, if he demanded of Hawkins, tell me where this woman that you've been having sex with lives, Hawkins would have to oblige. Then he could offer Claire, if you want to, what's it called? If you want to charge Hawkins with rape, I will transport you to the authority figure, and I will vouch for you. But he doesn't. The officer from the start of the movie completely disappears from the rest of the movie because the thing he was upset about was that one of his English soldiers was having sex with an Irish woman, and the fact that, there really is no, like, his soldiers are incredibly poorly, they're very badly behaved. That's what bothers him, honestly. Probably, in his mind, it's like, how are we supposed to subjugate the natives if you don't, if you act like this? And yeah, so the lieutenant lets Claire and Billy live rather than, he says, tell them that there's a thief and a convict loose, and I mean, I guess it's maybe in order to keep to avoid, what's it called? He's worried about getting too much negative attention, and that could ruin the promotion, maybe. Right. To real quick, one thing that I've felt, if you cut Lowana and, if you trimmed from the script when they take and rape Lowana and then kill her, really the only thing is, there's you have the part where they get attacked by Aboriginals, and ultimately I suppose you would have to go and rewrite it, because otherwise the Aboriginals attacking might read as they're, what's the word? They are, like, you maybe wouldn't, maybe some people would judge them for attacking, ultimately, like, it leads to the thing of, Charlie he says he's going to leave them there, but ultimately I think that it should just have been that Claire was Lowana instead, the whole movie through. And the part where I appreciate it is extremely important to point out how many, that a lot of people lost everyone because of the colonization. But the scene where Billy talks to other Aboriginals, and he learns that his people are dead, and this other group's people are dead, and then they all get shot. Like, really, that scene just exists to underline how bad that aspect it was. It doesn't come naturally. It's not organic to that was something I was you know, I mentioned there was something like that in the review. Now I'm talking spoilers, I can specify, but it is a powerful scene. I'm not saying it isn't, and I do really appreciate. I wish the movie, you know, did even more to underline how many people died from it, and yeah. But moving on, yeah. So Claire confronts the lieutenant in front of other military people and says, "I belong only to myself." And this is a line that it does have. Let's see. Yeah. So memorable quotes has this: "You can tell me to shut up, you can threaten me, but it won't do nothing. That girl you raped, whose husband and baby you murdered, that girl died, and you can't kill what's already dead." And Hawkins says, "This woman's a lying thief. She's just upset because I caught her trying to steal my horse. I'll have you arrested, you..." Yeah. Drunken H word. Or W word. Wow. And Claire responds, "I'm not your..." W word. "I'm not your nightingale, your little bird, your dove. I'm not your anything. I belong to me and no one else." And let's see. And let's see. Yeah, and then you know, Billy and Claire talk about how they handle people like that, and you know, if it was someone like in the tribe, you know, the elders would try to talk to them, but if not, they would kill them. And yeah, you know, Billy kills the lieutenant and the sergeant, and yeah, it's not really cathartic, and he's, you know, he's not shown as like some superhuman. I saw some people referencing Rambo in in their reviews, and you know, I think they were just like, it was maybe being facetious or to give a general sense, and there certainly is, like, there's definitely some first blood going on, you know, in this, but that first movie, and I guess also the book, I haven't read it, but I hear they're very similar, but you know, yeah, Claire never does become like John Rambo, nor does Billy, you know, yeah. And Billy sings in defiance, and you know, and the last lines, he yells, "I'm still here, you white bastards. I'm not going anywhere. I'm home." And yeah, and it's a very, very low-key downbeat ending. You know, the ending isn't this kind of what's the word? It's not the crap, what's the word? Yeah, you know, it's not like, I'm not sure she even, like, you could understand if there was, even if she doesn't anymore, if she no longer wants to kill them, and maybe she doesn't even want them dead at all, or like if it's this thing of what's the word, like she um you know, you could understand if there was at least this thing of, you know, well, if they're dead, then they won't be able to go out and rape and infanticide anymore. But I don't even really get that sense from the ending. It is just, yeah, you know, that it's over, but it's not really, yeah. So really, really, I really appreciate that. Now, that brings us to the final section, notes taken before watching. And let's see. Yeah, one reviewer said, it becomes clear soon after that scene that this is a revenge film, but the plot purposefully becomes anticlimactic and avoids catharsis. I assume the reason why was because it was based on real events. Kent in Q&A afterward denied this, though, making these plot points even more frustrating. Because it's not supposed to give catharsis, it would suggest that violence is a solution to violence, something that the movie is very clearly arguing against. And let's see. While we may applaud the fact that Claire and Billy have wrought justice on their oppressors in a way that not many on-screen women and minorities are allowed to do, the fact that they derive no pleasure from it, that it brings no relief, is the most expertly landed gut punch of this astonishing essential work. It really, there's no, like, there are so many, I've seen dozens of movies where the revenge is clearly, you know, it's very much supposed to be cathartic, you know. In standard rape revenge, you leave the film feeling the depravity and hopelessness of mankind, yet The Nightingale doesn't end in that fashion. Now, let's see. Yeah, one person says that, you know, if we're meant to sympathize with the natives, why also imply we should laugh at them when, you know, Billy tells her about his culture at the fire and singing raucously, and he says it's a bizarre change of tone, almost comedic manner. I think that was misinterpreted. I think it was not meant to be in any way comedic. I've had some interaction with Greenlandic people, and something you'll find with some of these people that were indigenous to you know, and a place that was then colonized, and that's also, you know, that's an ugly part of Danish history. We did colonize Greenland, and there's a lot of pain that we have caused there. And yeah, some of these Greenlandic people, and, you know, yeah, some indigenous people in general, you know, yeah, they will very suddenly break into song, or they will, like, say something that sounds really offensive to you know, yeah, to people who aren't indigenous, kind of thing, you know. That's just that, you know, that's something they sometimes do. It's not, I realize that some people think that that is funny, and I mean, I'll grant that it is in some ways unusual, you know. Certainly, if, like, I know, you know, white people who will suddenly break into song, they're doing it, you know, in a lot of those cases, it will be because they're really, really drunk, or they think it's funny, or something like that. And so, to be fair, sometimes it is. You know, I once witnessed, there was, like, let's see, I think it was two male friends, and then a girl who was, I guess, dating one of them, or something like that. And basically, one of the, you know, yeah, one of the guys said something. Yeah, I think, yeah. So the boyfriend said to the girlfriend something that kind of annoyed her, and then the friend started singing Hakuna Matata instead of simply saying, "Ah, calm down." You know, because that is what that movie, you know, that song is saying, don't worry about it. So, yeah, that was his way of trying, you know, basically he's trying to defuse the situation. You know, so it's not that that never happens, but there's either drunkenness leading to no awareness, or there's an awareness there. And yeah, you know, some indigenous people, I don't think they don't really think about it in that way. They don't think of it as something that you just, you know, I guess, is it faux pas, I guess, or like a socially awkward. Yeah, we in the West consider it a socially awkward thing to do, and some indigenous people don't really think of it that way, and yeah, so I would argue that this person misinterpreted that. I don't think it's supposed to be, I don't think it's supposed to be um, funny, or I'll grant that maybe Kent could handle it more smoothly, but I don't think that it is um, yeah, uh, yes, the fact that I think Kent also acknowledges that, it's just, sometimes they do that. And I think that the scene is maybe more supposed to be like, see, there's nothing wrong with it, than, oh, there it goes, kind of thing, so, yeah. But she might have overestimated the how a broad audience would perceive that. Now, let's see, um, right. More critic quotes. Another very present theme is one of trauma. Now, as the film's primary theme is rape and rape culture, trauma seems like an obvious thing, but not in the way that this movie uses it. Again, about halfway through the movie, Claire catches up to the first of her three targets, the younger ensign, the one actually guilty of infanticide. Claire isn't good with her musket and has to slowly, brutally beat the man to death with the stock of her gun, and this isn't presented in the fun hyper-reality of an average horror. There isn't even any catharsis to the act, especially as the young man begins to beg for his own mother, and Claire remains haunted by this act for the rest of the movie. Ending another human being's life, even one that had wronged her, just adds to Claire's, and by extension the audience's, burden. This is not Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. This is not The Day of the Woman. There is no satisfaction to be found here, and that is further emphasized by the main theme. Now, let's see. Throughout the film, Claire tries to tell anyone who will listen about what happened to her in a bid for something akin to justice, and every time she's soundly ignored. This is an extremely difficult thing to reckon with, almost specifically because it rings so painfully true. This film frankly feels less metaphorical and more allegorical, holding up a looking glass to you as an audience member, daring you to feel uncomfortable, because all of these three themes are things that directly correlate to modern society. As a matter of fact, if anything, the movie's cleverest move is being set a little more than a century in the past, because it really shines a light on how very little has changed in any of these regards. And this movie should sicken you, because it's accusing you, because although Hawkins is an overt villain of the piece, the actual antagonist is the series of societal norms that allow this story to feel so devastatingly plausible, and the film levels its accusatory gaze at a society that allows these things to happen, the people whose inaction implicitly condones the behavior, and especially at those who exploit their power to advantage themselves of others' suffering. Now, let's see. A scene with something approximating a kindly Englishman inviting these two strangers into his home initially seems meant to demonstrate how there might well still be empathy in this callous world, though Kent, as she does later, which we will, yeah, mercilessly skewers the cliché in Billy's dinner table intonation that this is his country, as if wondering why this Englishman's ostensible act of grace makes any difference in a world where he has already fashioned himself as sitting at the head of the table. This truth, in tandem with such casual, cruel violence, lays bare the futility of an eye for an eye, and hints at a denouement pointedly spurning catharsis. Stripping away all the momentum of the chase, Claire and Billy essentially lurching around and trying to fashion their own endings. If these stops and starts can make the stretch run feel long, the reward is worth it in a stunning series of final shots that, despite the serene setting, are remarkably, deservedly furious, deftly draining every last ounce of piss from the sun still rises bromide until all that remains is the clear-eyed, cold-hearted truth. While The Nightingale has been marketed and criticized as an exercise in Tasmanian Gothic, then it often plays more like a critique and deconstruction of Tasmanian Gothic. For the most part, Kent refrains from Tasmanian Gothic tropes such as supernatural motifs, uncanny connections, and above all, the sublime spectacle of the Tasmanian landscape. In particular, the square frame ratio works against a panoptic European gaze and aesthetic command of the landscape, especially since Kent opts for the briefest and most cursory of establishing shots to anchor us as we move up through the center of the island. Indeed, the only genuinely expansive vista occurs when Hawkins' tracker leads him off the track, taking him to the top of an isolated mountain and parodically proclaiming this can be his throne and domain, since he can see for miles and miles in all directions. Only here does Kent allow for an expansive sense of landscape, and only as a Tasmanian landscape experience that this tracker has mockingly deployed to ensnare and disorient his captors, parodically offering them precisely the command of sight that Kent's own camera eschews. And brilliantly done. I really, yeah. The Nightingale is ambitious in the way it tries to show how the colonialist Brits feel entitled to everything, to the women around them, to the land around them, and to the indigenous people around them. It's all their property in their heads, and they take and destroy as they see fit. Racism and misogyny run parallel here, and they certainly do, but they also go hand in hand. Unfortunately, this is where the film falls a little flat. While it does feature an indigenous woman, Magnolia Maimuru, she is pretty much sidelined by the plot, and crucially, she doesn't get any kind of victory in the end, not even a period one like Billy and Claire. This is, unfortunately, not so much a comment on how racism and misogyny can be seen as distinct phenomena, and how, therefore, women of color often get shortchanged when considering either, but a reproduction of it. Very sad, and very true. Now, let's see. Yeah, so some people say that, you know, oh, she was caught for stealing as a teenager. Others say we never learn what crime Claire committed. I think it's to avoid anyone thinking that the movie is saying, if you commit this crime, this is what will happen to you, because that might imply that there's some kind of, you know, like, she makes it clear in her monologue she had no choice. She couldn't make it without stealing. So, you know, it's important that nobody watches the movie and thinks, oh, you know, rape happens to people who steal, because that's not, you know, you know, if you look at the facts of rape, like, I know some people like to say, oh, you know, if they don't dress like that, they won't get raped. Well, there are people who don't dress like that who end up raped. There are, you know, there are cases where elderly women who rarely leave their home are raped. So, you know, it's not, oh, you know, so many young people, some people can't help but rape young people. It's not that, oh, she's always out there. It's not what she wore. It's none of that. Rape is not about the whether or not someone is sexually, you know, conventionally attractive. It's about power. It's the rapist wants to have power over the person. If it was just about having an orgasm, they could just masturbate instead, or, you know, try to find someone that they could pay to have sex with. And, you know, yeah, I feel like this movie does a really good job. There's no hint that, like, she led on Hawkins or something. Now, that's it for this video. So if you go to the comment section, maybe let me know, what do you think is the best movie that explores, like, what rape does to rape survivors? And, you know, yeah, you know, yeah, I've myself mentioned, you know, there's Monster, there is the original, can't believe I'm blanking on the name. I will have it momentarily. I know it's right around here. Here we go. Rosemary's Baby. And yeah, you know, I think each of these does a really good job putting you in the headspace of the rape survivor and going into some of the things that are different for them now because of yeah. So yeah, if you like the video, please thumbs up and subscribe, hit the bell, and yeah, yeah, next video that I make will be sometime next week. So I appreciate your